Hi everyone, welcome to the Spiritist talk from the Allan Kardec Spirit Center of Danbury. We host these talks every Friday of the month, always at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If you miss it, don't worry, you can always watch it in our YouTube channel. But please subscribe and turn on the notifications. Tonight, the topic is Reincarnation, Devine Justice by Joao Korngold. Joao is one of the founders and the directors of the Spirits Group of New York and the Spirit Alliance for Books. He began studying Spiritism more than 25 years ago and has been one of the directors of the mediumship meeting at SGNY for the past 18 years. He is also responsible for study groups that focus on the basic books of Spiritism and also on the André Luiz collection. He gave talks in Spiritism or about Spiritism in Portuguese and in English. In his professional career, Joao is an engineer and also works as a banker. But before we move on to our guests, I will read you a message from the book Happy Life by Joana de Angelis and Divaldo Pereira Franco. The message says, "Greet your day with a prayer of gratitude. You are alive. While there is life, opportunities for growth and happiness abound. Each day is a new blessing from God, proof of His love for you. As you pass the hours, cultivate optimism and well-being." And with that, I would like to invite you to join me in our initial prayer as we together elevate our thoughts to our Creator and our Master Jesus, thanking for this opportunity, thanking for the benefactors of this Spiritist Center, asking for protection, for inspiration, so our friend Joao can really speak to our hearts, providing us consolation and instruction that will help us to evolve, to change everything inside us that is needed for our spiritual growth. Lord, in one voice, we ask your protection and thank you for this great opportunity that we have. Bless us all tonight and always. So be it. So tonight, as we said, we will have our friend Joao speaking to us from New York. Hi, Joao. How are you?
Hi, Marcio. How are you? Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be back here with the Allan Kardec Spiritist Society of Danbury. And, first time virtually.
Yes, that is true.
Previously was in present, but, new technologies, new life, and we adapt and evolve.
Yes, we are always very grateful and very happy when we can see each other, but also we are very happy that even though in the current situation, we are able to have you here with us and speaking about this very specific but very important topic, reincarnation. So without further ado, I will give you the opportunity to talk to everybody about what reincarnation is according to Spiritism, but also would like to remember everyone, if you have a question, feel free to write down your question in the comments, then Joao may be able to get to your question by the end of his talk. So Joao, please take us through your talk.
Thank you, Marcio. So we're going to talk about reincarnation. And of course, reincarnation is always an interesting subject. And I think Spiritism brings us a very interesting approach and a very enlightening approach to reincarnation. The most complete work that you can find on explaining the process of reincarnation is the book Missionaries of the Light by Francisco Xavier and André Luiz. It's the Spirit André Luiz. And so we are going to be talking a little bit, part of our talk will be through the important pages of the book that covers the process of reincarnation. But for us to start, let's learn first what reincarnation means. According to the Oxford Dictionary of English, etymology, reincarnation, repeat, the prefix, it's repeat or come again. Incarnate comes from the Latin incarnatus, which is to become flesh. Carne, flesh. So, what is reincarnation? Well, according to Spiritism, is the return of a soul or spirit to physical life in another body that has been newly formed by it. The spiritualist definition of reincarnation, we are going to find the belief that the soul, after the death of the physical body, returns to earth in another body or form. It's the rebirth of a soul in a new body, or a new incarnation or incorporation of a person. And you see the literature that exists here in the US. I'm showing 6 books that talk about reincarnation. None of them are Spiritist books. So we can see that the reincarnation is common here in this country. According to the last Gallup research that I found, around 30% of the Americans believe in reincarnation. And as I always joke when we are studying reincarnation in our group, 29.9% have no idea how it works. So Spiritism brings to us, so first, if you look at Amazon and you type reincarnation, you are going to find, this is kind of old, but last that we did this research, more than 54,000 results on works on reincarnation, on searches that with books that talk about reincarnation in some form. So you see that it's nothing new and nothing out of the ordinary for the common public here in the US. And also, we have to mention 2 very important studies done on reincarnation. First is probably the most important author, American author that made studies on reincarnation, Dr. Ian Stevenson, that published 3 books specific on the topic of reincarnation, 20 cases suggestive of reincarnation, children who remember previous lives, and then where reincarnation and biology intersect. So he did an extensive research throughout his life at Duke University on the topic of reincarnation, studied many, many cases, published the 20 cases that he thought were more interesting. This is the cover there is the 2nd edition. And he proves reincarnation by talking to children that remember their previous lives or that had marks, physical marks of things that happened to them in a previous existence. So it is a very important research, a very well-known researcher, and it's very useful for us Spiritists to learn and study his work, because it really helps us when we are disseminating the concept of reincarnation. And then we have this book called Soul Survivor by Bruce and Andrea Leininger, talking about their son. Their son remembered perfectly his previous incarnation as a pilot in the Second World War that died in a Japanese island when his plane was shot down. So this is the picture of the pilot, and he could describe up until 7 years old, he could describe with details, and he was taken there to the place, and he remembered exactly things that happened that only a reincarnation process could explain, because there is no other way he could explain that. And Carol Bauman, that was in one of our symposiums, did an extensive study and an extensive research on him, and it's very interesting because it's really one of the clearest cases of reincarnation that we can read a report on reincarnation. But let's talk about Spiritism. The fundamentals of Spiritism. There are 5 fundamentals of Spiritism: the existence of God, the existence of spirits and their survival after death, reincarnation, multitude of inhabited worlds, and communicability of the spirits. Here is where we are going to focus. But it's important to understand that in Spiritism didn't bring anything new. So the existence of God, that exists since the beginning of times. Since primitive beings, we believe in something else that is not physical. The existence of spirits and their survival after death, also not something that Spiritism brought to us, but something that exists since primitive times. Reincarnation, the Eastern cultures believe in reincarnation, have believed and taught reincarnation for thousands of years. Multitude of inhabited worlds, you have different people that believe that in that. It's not, Spiritism was not the first one to bring it. And communicability of the spirits, as we normally say, since the first incarnated human being and the first spirit in the spiritual world existed, the communicability was possible. And you find in all ancient civilizations different stories about the communicability of the spirits. You have the Delphi oracle in ancient Greece, that the spirits gave messages. You have Socrates talking about it. You have Pythagoras talking about it. You have the belief in ancient Egypt on the spirits and the communication that they received. And you go in recent times, you have different beliefs, religions that have used the communication with the spirit. So what did Spiritism bring to us? What Spiritism brought to us, it's an explanation on how it works. Nowhere else you are going to find such a detailed explanation of reincarnation like Spiritism has brought to us. So for those 30% of Americans that believe in reincarnation, what an opportunity for them to learn what is the purpose of reincarnation? How does it work? Why does it happen? And how is the process? And this is all explained by Spiritism in a way that you won't find anywhere else. Also, it's not the subject tonight, but on the mediumship or communicability of the spirits, the way that Spiritism explains it, from the philosophical aspect to the scientific aspect to the moral aspect, there is nowhere else that you learn more about how, why, and the effectiveness of mediumship and the communication of the spirits. But tonight we're talking about reincarnation, so let's go back to Spiritism and reincarnation. So the purpose of reincarnation, according to Spiritism, learning, atonement, and moral and spiritual advancement. So don't we learn in the spiritual world? Yes, we do. But when we are in the spiritual world, we are surrounded by spirits that vibrate more or less at the same level that we vibrate. So when we talk about learning in the spiritual world, you see, you just have to read André Luiz's collection, Life in the Spiritual World, and you'll see how much he learned there in the spiritual world, from the beginning in Ossular, when he was rescued from the lower zones, to the end, when he had really a very good knowledge of life in the spiritual world and the interchange of energies and of communication between the spiritual world and the physical world. So we can learn there, and we can learn here. But for us to put in practice our learning, to be surrounded by spirits, in this case incarnated spirits that are different than us, that have different thoughts, different opinions, different desires, that's where we put in practice all the moral and spiritual learning that we make both in the spiritual world and the physical world. And of course, if we study God's law, the natural laws, the laws of cause and effect, everything that we have done in our previous incarnations will result in a consequence. It could be a positive consequence or a negative consequence. And atonement is an opportunity for repair. We live, as you all know, in a world of trials and atonements. So trials are opportunities to learn from new experiences, new challenges. And atonements are opportunities to repair what we have done wrong in previous incarnation, to readjust with those that we have caused harm, and combining both of them, it's an opportunity for moral and spiritual advancement. So yes, reincarnation is mandatory, and because it's part of the natural law. God's law dictates that our evolvement, moral and spiritual, is done through reincarnation. But going to the Spirit's book, on question 166, Kardec asks the spirits, how can a soul that has not reached perfection during corporeal life achieve purification? So how can a soul evolve? How can we reach the highest level? By experiencing the trial of a new existence. And then A, how does the soul carry out this new existence? Is it through its transformation as a spirit? The soul undergoes a transformation when it purifies itself. For this transformation to happen, it needs to experience the trial of corporeal life. So the spirits are telling us clearly that we have to come to a new incarnation. We have to reincarnate. So Kardec continues, does the soul have multiple corporeal lives? Yes, we all have many lives. Those who say any different want you to stay ignorant like them. Again, those that try to convince us that we have only one life, they cannot provide a reasonable explanation. Spiritism is based on reason. And if they cannot reason with us, they cannot prove by reason that it makes sense for us to have only one life, then we have really to go on a different direction and do our research and our studies. So Kardec concludes, this statement implies that the soul, after leaving one body, inhabits another. In other words, it reincarnates itself. Is this correct? And the spirits very directly and very clearly say, obviously. So, according to the spirits, it's clear that reincarnation exists and we have to reincarnate. Now, Spiritism, different from the Eastern philosophies, teaches us that we are always progressing. So we are reincarnating in a better situation than we were in our previous incarnation in terms of moral and intellectual evolvement. Of course, the intellectual part can have different issues of preventing us to exercise our full abilities for different reasons, but every moral evolvement that we have, we bring with us. As I usually joke, you don't lose your patience. Either you have it or you don't. So once you achieve patience, you do not lose it anymore. On the Gospel according to Spiritism, we will find that the explanations on reincarnation when the spirits tell us the infinite variety of tastes, faculties, and characters is easily explained. All souls are not of the same age. All have not walked the same paths in evolution. So that explains why we see people around us so different. We see people that have abilities that one incarnation only cannot explain at a very young age. You see these singers that can sing at a very young age, or composers, and all these spirits those that can go to college when they are 11 years old. How can you explain that without reincarnation? It's very hard. It doesn't make any sense, really. So it is said that some people have a bad temper from childhood on when violence, impatience, and selfishness predominate. These tendencies, whether good or bad, reveal the nature of our spiritual past. So we look at children and we see how different they are, and they showing already different tendencies. And we see that this cannot appear in 3, 4, 5 years of existence. They bring these tendencies from previous incarnations. We bring these tendencies from previous incarnations. So it's incumbent on the parents to educate them so they learn how to control their bad tendencies. Having been brought from past existences, these good or evil instincts will manifest themselves from early childhood. It is necessary that parents study these instincts and then take care to combat them without waiting for them to take deep root. So for parents that have young kids, the window of opportunity that we have, the best window of opportunity that we have, is from 0 to 7. That's when kids are more malleable to our influences and to learn to control their bad tendencies. Of course, we are not going to be able to solve all the issues, to make them learn to control everything, but we can put them on the route of learning to be attentive to their issues and trying to help them, to educate them, to be able to live a better life. Because if those instincts, inferior tendencies, present themselves later in life, they're going to create a lot of difficulties for them, and they're going to suffer for it. So if we can help them in combating them, not allowing them, as they say here, to take deep root, we are for sure providing a better life for our kids when they grow up. Of course, as they go from 7 to 13, before teenagers, is still a window of opportunity. It's a little bit more difficult, but it is still time for us to help them control their instincts. And then everything explodes in adolescence, teenage years, and where everything comes, the incarnation really completes itself, and all hell breaks loose, as they say. But again, we have to continue helping them and teaching them throughout as much as possible. When they become adults, once they eventually, when they look back, if we we did a decent job, they will recognize and they will understand the necessity. Like we recognize the effort that our parents did with us. But going back to Jesus, when we talk about reincarnation, just to remind everyone that Jesus already spoke about reincarnation. We are going to find in Matthew 11:14 and 17:10-13 that John the Baptist was Elijah returned. The doctrine of reincarnation was actually excised from Roman Church thinking in 553 by the Fifth Ecumenical Council of Constantinople, when the teachings of Origen, one of the most influential of early church fathers, about the pre-existence of the soul were anathemized by the Emperor Justinian. So the early Christians believed in reincarnation. Of course, the concept of resurrection and reincarnation was kind of mixed at that time. They didn't know clearly the difference, but they believed in the survival of the soul and the return to the physical body. Of course, with the limitations of our knowledge of the past. But Justinian, the Emperor Justinian, decided that, according to some influenced by his wife, decided that reincarnation was not a good thing to have because they didn't want to deal with their own issues, and they decided to eliminate it. Later, it disappeared from church history for nearly 1,000 years, but then appeared briefly in Europe as part of the teachings of the Cathars, who were then again extirpated by the church in the notorious Albigensian Crusade, one of the Crusades. You'll find still some writings from the Cathars and some teachings that talk about reincarnation. But continuing, when Jesus met Nicodemus, he told Nicodemus, I tell you the truth, no one can see the kingdom of God unless he's born again. And then Nicodemus asked, how can a man be born when he's old? Jesus answered, surely he cannot enter the second time into his mother's womb to be born. I tell you the truth, no one can enter the kingdom of God unless he's born of water and the Spirit. Flesh gives birth to flesh, but Spirit gives birth to spirit. You should not be surprised at my saying, you must be born again. This is John 3:1-12. So Jesus is saying clearly here, talking about reincarnation. And he's talking about flesh, the difference between flesh and the spirit. Our interpretation in Christianity was that we had to be baptized in water, right? So born of water means being baptized, instead of understanding what Jesus really meant, which is the concept of reincarnation. We must be born again. So what are the implications of reincarnation in our lives? It strengthens family ties. We come back around those that love us and those that we need to readjust. So our parents, our brothers and sisters, our immediate family, many of them are known to us from previous incarnations. We are here so they can help us when we need, or we can help them, or resolve our differences with those that we have problems. So contrary to what some people say, that reincarnation breaks family ties, it's really the opposite. It strengthens family ties because you keep building on the family connections that you have and keep adding more family members to our universal family. So the more incarnations you have, the bigger your family will be. And your truly loved ones, you never lose. They will be always with you. The Dalai Lama says, the reincarnation engenders universal love. It is a step towards tolerance. racial, religious, and social, because when we learn more about reincarnation and we know that we are going to be born in different races, different religions, different social conditions, we have to learn to be tolerant, to accept differences, to understand that those that are supposedly our enemies in the past could be our family in a future incarnation. Those that we persecute now, especially in terms of races, the problems we have, could end up causing us to reincarnate inside that those that we persecute. So Elena Blavatsky says, reincarnation brings a sense of brotherhood, raises the sense of renewal, elongates time sense. When you understand that we are eternal souls, that we will come back, that we will continue evolving, it gives us a purpose. It gives us a sense of understanding and belonging, and the concept of brotherhood, like she said. So, going back to Kardec, to be born, to die, to be reborn yet again, and constantly progress. This is one of Spiritist maxims that we like to use, and you will find it on Kardec's epitaph. So let's go a little bit with André Luiz and talk a little bit about specific cases on reincarnation, so we can learn a little bit more about the process of reincarnation. I think it's important for us to remind ourselves. I'm sure most of you read Missionaries of the Light, and this chapter, when André Luiz goes to the Ministry of the Planning Center for Reincarnation, it's a very interesting chapter that we see different cases, and we're going to go quickly over some cases here. So André Luiz was being prepared to follow the reincarnation of Sigismundo, and when he was presented with the case, he asked his mentor, Alexander, if he could follow closely the reincarnation of Sigismundo. And we are not going to discuss the reincarnation of Sigismundo here, because that's not, it takes a whole class for it. We're going to talk about other cases here. But Alexandre tells him, in order for you to follow the case, you require the proper knowledge of the subject. So you should spend a few days on the Reincarnation Planning Center, and you get an approximate idea of our task by observing such work directly. So André Luiz didn't understand well how reincarnation worked, so Alexandre told him to go and spend some time in the Reincarnation Planning Center in Nosso So they go to the building where the reincarnation planning is located, and they see the spirits moving about, and Alexandre explains to him that the spirits we see here are workers who are interested in future incarnations. So they are carrying some scrolls that they are little shards of organic forms prepared by guides on our plane who are specialists in biological knowledge of earthly existence. So these are all blueprints of reincarnation forms for spirits that are coming to Earth on a new reincarnation. Inside the reincarnation planning, Alexandre then introduces André to Josino, who is the responsible for the building, and André Luiz sees two statues in luminous pedestals representing a male body and the other one a female body, and he was very impressed, and he spends some time examining them and learning and admiring how much beautiful and the importance that is given to the physical body in the spiritual world. And the mentors tell him, of course, the physical body is our most valuable instrument for progress. So we need to study and understand and be able to prepare it to the best way possible And then Josino introduces him to Manasses, a brother that is working with the information services that was going to show him around and introduce him to some cases. So he went with André Luiz to the design and planning pavilions, where a large number of co-workers were drawing up plans for uncommon reincarnations. Okay, uncommon, why? That's one of the first questions that André Luiz asked him. So all these the reincarnations are done this way, and Manasses explains to him, no, the majority of reincarnations happen in a natural way. So it's a process, an automatic process, of course, coordinated by the spiritual world and by the spirits responsible, but it has nothing out of the ordinary in most of them. It's just the natural process that follows the divine law. The special cases that later Manasses tell him that they are the completers are the ones that André Luiz is going to see here. And André Luiz, of course, is very interested in asking what are the completers, and Manasses explained to them that we come here on our new incarnation with a plan, which is a word that some people don't like it very much because it's not written in stone. But we have objectives in our new incarnation, and we are bringing our responsibilities, that what we are supposed to achieve. And he says, most of us achieve 40 to 70% of what we are supposed to achieve in a new incarnation. That's the vast majority. Very few of us are able to complete 100% of what we were supposed to do. Those that have achieved 100% in the incarnation are the ones that have the opportunity of participating in their new planning of the new physical existence that they are going to have. So they participate in this, they are part in this building of the new reincarnation plan for them. So they went and visit the design and planning pavilion when they meet Silverio, who arrives to talk to Manasses. And Manasses explains that Silverio worked for 15 years in activities of assistance and was now ready to return to the physical realm, but was afraid of accumulating new debts. And Manasses tells him not to worry, that he did well in accepting the design of the model, and he congratulates him for having accepted the suggestion of good spirits with regards of your limb deficiency. Meaning he's going to come with a problem in one of his legs that will prevent him from have full mobility. And he says that it's very important because he don't want to be distracted. If he comes with a body that works perfectly, it will be very easy for him to get distracted in the physical life, things that happen in the physical life. So he agrees that he comes with an issue that will occupy his thoughts and his understanding of his needs in the physical life, and will help him achieve everything that he needs in this new incarnation. So they go to the design workroom. When they see paintings, they see pictures, they see a lot of papers with reincarnation plans, what we can call blueprints. So we had small screens showing parts of the human body that were placed in an orderly fashion all around, and hundreds of technicians in matters of embryology and general biology work there. And André Luiz is surprised of how complex was the opportunity of being reborn. When we talk up here about embryology and general biology, of course, we are going to inherit from our biological parents what we need for our new physical body. But those that know more about DNAs and all the general biology and embryology know that we inherit that we can inherit many things and not others from the parents. So in the reincarnation process, all of this is taken care of in this room where they are planning the physical bodies of the spirits that are preparing themselves for reincarnation. It's really complex, again, in these specific cases that you want to have the spirits more prepared to fully achieve what they are looking for in their new incarnation. So, talking about reincarnation, Manasses tells him, primitive or semi-primitive people use the always sacred resources of nature to build their homes in more simple and rudimentary forms, whereas people who have already reached a certain level of ideals and have developed higher faculties build their homes by drawing blueprints beforehand. So he's comparing the physical body to our homes. So we go to when we go to primitive people, they build their homes out of the knowledge that they have, but they don't plan it ahead. Now, we, in our more evolved societies, we have blueprints for constructions. And you notice that Marcio mentioned that I'm a civil engineer, so I study all that, never work with, but blueprints was part of my college studies for many years, and it is very complex, and it's very hard to learn how to do the blueprints of a building or of a house. So we can understand that if things here are a bad copy of the spiritual world, as we learn, of course the blueprints of a new physical body in the spiritual world must be fascinating, right? Because we can only imagine the perfection of the work that they do in this room that André Luiz was visiting. And remember, Nosso Lar is not a highly evolved colony. Is the first level of organized colonies above the lower zones. It's actually in the lower zones, surrounded by the lower zones, as you can read in the book Nosso Lar. So, but it is an organized society that it has only spirits that are interested in their moral and intellectual evolvement. So they continue in the design room, and you see here how big is this, the drawing of this design room, how interesting that they were able to replicate. It looks like modern computers rooms that we see here in the physical world. And of course, again, we here are just copying what we bring, the recollections we have from the spiritual world. So when they meet Sister Anacleta, Manasses tell that she was one of our bravest works. She's planning to return to Earth in a few days in a task of great self-sacrifice involving 4 spirits who have been struggling in the abysmal regions of the lower zones for over 40 years. It took her 30 years to receive the concession. So what was the issue with Anacleta, Sister Anacleta? She was a mother of these 4 spirits, and she caused them harm by excessive love. They were in a wealthy family. The father was someone that, out of honest work, could provide for the family, and they lived a very comfortable life. So she did not take care of their children, of her children in terms of education, providing them with tools to deal with their physical lives in a productive way. So all 4 of them end up dying young and wasted the opportunity of the physical life and got lost in the vicissitudes of life. and went back to the lower zones. So she's been working for 30 years to prepare herself for an opportunity to receive all 4 of them again as her children, with the challenges that they will bring. 2 of them will come with physical imperfections. 1 of them will be mentally challenged, and only the girl, there are 3 boys and a girl, is the one that's going to be able to help and assist her as part of her also atonement, as we mentioned before. So it's a very interesting case, and it shows the logic of reincarnation and how we have to work to repair the mistakes we made, and that not only we hurt by hatred, but we can hurt by misguided and excessive love. So then they meet this young lady that asks Manasses to an intervention to modify her design plan. And André Luiz looks at her chart, and it displays a perfectly drawn woman's body. And she says, "Take a good look at my plan for the endocrinal system. I know my friends have done me a favor by planning it very harmoniously, but I would prefer avoid re-entering Earth with flawless bodily lines. Perfect physical harmony would get in the way of my goals." So what is really she talking about here? Well, if you read the chapter, when they talk about the completers, Manasses explains that the completers, they want a physical body that works, but don't call the attention of anyone. Because if you are too beautiful, or on the other hand, if you are repellent for others, it distracts and prevents you from doing your work. So they say all the missionaries that come to Earth, they have physical bodies that work perfectly, but are not attractive or non-attractive. They are functional. That's the best word to describe. So Manasses said, "You are right. Physical seductiveness is a real danger, not only for those who radiate its influence, but also for those who are subject to it. Because it's not only you being having physical beauty, but with it you cause jealousy, you cause hatred, you cause things that can harm yourself and harm others. While if you are with a functional body that is really just okay, like we would say here in the physical world, it allows you to work silently or anonymously in a much more efficient way. And finally, we have this friend of Manasses that he tells the story of this individual that over 100 years ago committed a terrible crime by stabbing a poor man to death. And of course, the discarnate victim became an obsessor and attached to the killer, and slowly, through systematic attack of deadly thoughts, ended up causing a lot of harm. And when he finally discarnated, his very spiritual body was in a lamentable state. So everything that he was able to imprint in the mind of the murderer ended up appearing in the perispiritual body, because our perispiritual body is a reflection of who we are and how we manifest ourselves. So he repented the crime and endured much in the purgatorial realms. And after long purifying suffering, he approached this victim and benefited the victim with laudable services of rescue and penitence. He spent a very long time helping his victim without his victim really knowing who was helping him. And because of this, he obtained a precious intercession. But the death remains, of course, cause and consequence. You killed someone, you have, in a way, to face the consequences of what you have caused. So, because of his work, he will not have to die in a bloody way, but he will have an open wound with him. So he shows the dark spots that presents in the descending column to the sigmoid loop that indicates that he will suffer from a large ulcer in this area as soon as he becomes an adult. And he will carry these ulcers and these issues throughout his physical life. It will be a beneficial way of him facing the consequences of the acts he have committed without having to go through a violent death that is a natural consequence of what he had done. So we can see that human existence is not an accidental act, much to the contrary. Reincarnation is a blessed opportunity. Reincarnation explains, for instance, why some people have shown precocious abilities for music, painting, math, and other arts without any incentive in the current existence. So we see Mozart that at age 4 composed his first sonata. At age 7 composed his first opera. Well, at age 12 he had 2 complete operas. And he came from a musical family. Yet his family's musical capacity was not sufficient to explain how he could have a knowledge of the laws of harmony at age 4. Even if you are born in a family that plays music all the time, and at that time, remember, at the time of Mozart, there was no instruments, electric instruments, it was all live playing. When he composes his first sonata at age 4, only something that comes from previous reincarnation can explain what happened. This. And also, when we talk about Michelangelo became a master at 8 years old, and we can see here the work of the Sistine Chapel, which of course was not done when he was 8 years old. It was done later in life, but it is one of the most beautiful works of art that we have in the world. And at 8 years old, he was already able to produce marvelous art designs. And how can you explain that if not by a previous incarnation? So in conclusion, we are going to use 2 quotes. The first one from Owen Barfield. Owen Barfield was a British philosopher, author, poet, and critic. And he was a great influencer in the works of C.S. Lewis, that you may know by the Chronicles of Narnia, and J.R.R. Tolkien, that you probably know by the Lord of the Rings and the other Hobbit works. So they were both very much influenced by him. He says, to not remember a past life or lives is therefore no indication that we have not had them, merely a pointer to the fact that memory of ourselves as a personality is not ultimately important. To remember past lives in our present psychological condition will be to know too much. So he already brings what we learn in Spiritism, the idea that we don't remember our previous lives because it is too much. We can barely deal with what we did wrong in the present life. We all have trouble with some aspects of our present life that we would like to erase. If you start remembering all the things that we did in our previous existences, it will be really impossible for us to live a normal life. So we remember when it's necessary. We can find, according to our inclinations, we can find inklings of our previous existences, because what we are today is an accumulation of all our previous incarnations. So we can find our qualities and imperfections and work on them, and we can guess from them what we have been in previous existences, but we are not prepared to deal with them. Of course, we have past life therapies that, when used to help us overcome past traumas, and they are useful, but when they are used to as an object of curiosity, it can cause more harm than good. And finally, one of our forefathers here in the US, as we come to 4th of July tomorrow, as a young man in 1728, Benjamin Franklin had composed his own mock epitaph, which read, "The body of Benjamin Franklin, printer, like the cover of an old book, its contents torn out and stripped of its lettering and gilding, lies here, food for worms. But the work shall not be lost, for it will appear once more in a new and more perfect edition, corrected and amended by the author." You see that Benjamin Franklin had the perfect concept of reincarnation according to Spiritism, that we will come back as a better version of ourselves, that the work is not lost, that the physical body damages, the physical body perishes, but the spirit is eternal, continuous, and will come back in a better version, a more perfect edition, like our friend Benjamin Franklin said here to all of us, and is written in his epitaph. So, welcome back to the studies of reincarnation. You've been here before, and you are here again. Thank you for your attention. I hope you had a pleasant evening with us, and I don't know if there are any questions. I'll ask Marcio to tell me, and maybe we will cover them. Thank you all.
Hi, João, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, no, we actually don't have any questions, and we also, first we'd like to thank you for leading us and for this very important study and topic. But we also would like to apologize to our friends, everybody that is watching. We have a issue with our broadcast to YouTube that was terminated. Fortunately, most of the people that were watching there were able to switch to Facebook and continue to watch. So I guess we had an issue there. We're still working to resolve the issue, but people were able to move from one channel to the other. So that's great. We apologize for any inconvenience that this may cause.
Okay.
But thanks a lot, João. And with that, I would like to invite everyone to continue with our thoughts and thank our Master Jesus and all the benefactor spirits that help us all, and especially those, Lord, that inspire our friend João, that brought to us very important information that give us consolation to any issues, any pains that we have in this present life. So, Lord, please bless us all as we go in this journey, in this life. It's not the first time, Lord, that we are here in this life. As we learn today, we had many opportunities. We had many that passed, but we will have many more ahead of us. And we thank you for all the opportunities that are given to us so we can evolve and reach perfection. Lord, bless us all. And tonight, we feel really privileged that we have all this knowledge to nourish our soul and become a better person. So be it, sir. Thank you, Joao.
Thank you, Marcio.
And we wish everybody a great night. And we have these talks the first Friday every month. So please join us for the next one, which will be in August. And we are not sure yet if we will have this in our center or only online. Nevertheless, you're always invited to join us and watch it, because we always have the broadcast, regardless of being physically present at the Spiritus Center or doing this from our homes. So thanks again. Thanks, Joao, and everybody for watching, and have a good night.
Good night. Thank you.